Fnatic, you don't actually have to look at banning away any of the power champions. You can just rely on Vitality to do it, unless they want to gamble, unless they go full SKT and they ban none of the power picks and they leave everything open. And so far, they're actually starting off their ban strategy with just that.
All right, one ban. I'll believe it if I see a second one. A second one, Vedius. Obviously, Varus was the first pick for Fnatic in game one, and Fnatic pulled a switcheroo through that mid lane, and that really put a spanner in the works. So Fnatic now ban out the Rengar.
Wow, so Vitality are saying, look, we are considering not banning any of the top champions. And what this means is if you leave them all open, then Vitality are always going to win out on that trade because they will get 2 power picks for 1. So Fnatic are responding with, we are not going to allow you to do this. We are going to ban away the Rengar, and we're going to make it so that we can get ourselves someone like the LeBlanc, and this is more of where Caps could shine. So Vitality responding by saying, oh, okay, we see what you're trying to do, and we're not going to enable Caps to be on such a snowbally champ.
I really like this. A couple of weeks of the same patch and meta. You're starting to see evolution in the pick ban strategy, and also you're starting to see it tailored more towards the respective teams, right? You don't want to give certain champions to certain players. Kha'Zix is a question for me. Djoko had a pretty good game on it, and it is now taken off the table. Fnatic looking at another option for first pick.
Ivern has to be the priority for Fnatic right now. If they don't pick it up, Djoko will likely respond. But when we look at some of the other options available, Jhin is a power pick, something that Vitality could look to respond with. They could go for a Jhin Zyra so that Steelback and Nukeduck would finally get themselves a priority lane. But then we already know that Jesiz can play the Misfortune. So far, a lot of things available, but both teams get a lot of freedom in their power picks.
In an isolated world where only these 2 games between Fnatic and Vitality exist, Rekkles' Misfortune was better than Jesiz' Misfortune. But obviously the game had a very large reason as to that. And Steelback will once again be playing Jhin. Nukeduck has played Malzahar 2 of this series 3 games. And remember, Graves was banned out in the previous match, so not going to go towards any other jungler, confirming that for Djoko.
Now, this is actually a very good jungle pick into the Ivern because they both do a very similar thing in the early game, which is prioritize on early clearing, early farming, and working towards that 2-item power spike. For Graves, he values a lot from a lot of the lethality changes, and because of his natural tankiness, come the mid-game, what he lacks in utility, he certainly makes up as a semi-auto frontline, but also a big damage source.
All right, big damage source, and with that itemization can get a little tanky. Misfortune Malzahar for Fnatic. Nukeduck will need to play another support, and we will see him on Zyra. So Rekkles is going to go to that pick that worked in game number 1. All right, ADC supports and junglers locked in. We're waiting for now mid and top, and Vitality and Fnatic in ban phase 2 can look to target one of those 2 respective roles.
I feel that if you're Vitality, you ban away champions like Gangplank and Rumble, look to early prioritize the Shen. You're then forcing Fnatic to invest another ban into the top lane, and because Vitality have priority, they can get themselves a top laner and force Fnatic to experience the pinch.
All right, it's a Poppy ban, not the damage dealers of Rumble yet, or Gangplank. sOAZ has played a large number of tanks throughout the course of the split. And of course, maybe a more traditional team comp, with the exception of this ADC, might push sOAZ that direction. 4 games Maokai, 2 games Nautilus, 2 games Shen. Shen is still available. We'll find out for how much longer, as Gangplank is now the follow-up.
So you have to ban Shen now if you're Fnatic, because otherwise Vitality are going to first pick it. They could shift more towards a teamfight style, and they invest their second ban into something like an Orianna, so that when Vitality go for the Shen pick, Fnatic can respond with an early rise.
But what does the Fiora ban out mean? A tank option for Fnatic, maybe. Obviously, Shen locked in here for Vitality. He's denying one of those carries for Cabo, but he's locked in Shen.
I feel like Maokai has to be the priority now. The Fiora ban really confuses me because it should have been obvious that Shen was going to be the pick for Vitality. Nevertheless, Maokai makes the most sense. You've already started building up a pretty solid teamfight composition. When you pair that with a Rise as well, Fnatic have a good mid-game spike.
Vedius, it was GBM versus Caps that defined that previous game. What mid laners are we going to see?
Ooh, Rise makes the most sense to me. I think it's the safest. I think that with Syndra banned away, don't troll me now.
Wait, mid lane Cannon?
Or it's mid lane Malz.
What would... Yeah, I don't know.
So mid lane Cannon is very new. It's something that I personally have played a lot of, but...
Well, that means nothing there, my friend.
Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of risks with it, which we can talk more about once we get into game. But this is definitely a cap special, and we talked about team fight power. Oh my word, we have an exciting mid lane matchup today.
Yes, we do. Whether it's Malzahar or Kennen, I care not a jot. It is Xerath locked in. Now, Rekkles has run ADC Kennen 2 or 3 weeks ago.
There we go,
played
yeah.
split pushing power. Malzahar into Xerath.
Okay, so the reason as to why we saw the Malzahar plus the Misfortune pick was because Fnatic wanted to guarantee that they would have the stronger 2 versus 2. They wanted to net themselves the counter pick in the bottom lane to try and shut down Nukeduck. But to do that, they had to lock in both the Malz and the Fiora, and they held on to the flexibility of it. So they allowed the Malzahar to go into the mid lane, and now Rekkles is going to be playing the Kennen on AD carry.
All right, in terms of Xerath, the last player to play him professionally was Camille in the CBLOL League, right? That's 7.1. And before that, it was GBM last year on 6.14. This is the second time that we've seen this pick in the last few months. And GBM has played that a couple of times. He lost in the promotion tournament, I'm afraid, but GBM went 2-0 in Summer NALCS.
One of the great things about GBM, in his time during the NALCS, in the summer split alone, he played 16 different unique champions.
That's not a good thing, in my opinion.
No, because he did only win on about 2 of them. But it's the fact that he's willing to try, and that's what we're excited to see.
Oh, you got a participation award at high school, didn't you? That's why you're a fan of that. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Fnatic versus Vitality. Game 3 here in the cross-group play. Fnatic at 2 series wins, 2 series losses, at risk of losing a 3rd. And now we get to see Malzahar versus Xerath in the mid lane.
As exciting as this matchup should be, unfortunately, QuickShot, it's 2 mages that just kind of love to farm. They're both going to prioritize on going for the early push. Xerath is a champion that we have not seen for a while, but his playstyle is very much the same. Really good at poking, really good at sieging. We'll have to get to the mid lane later as Vitality group up in the bottom lane.
Oh, where's the CC? Nope, got the flash. That's big. That's big.
Is. The problem is, Djoko is playing a Graves, which isn't great at setting up the early ganks. If there is a slight overstep from Jesiz, you could have Nukeduck punish him, followed by the Deadly Flourish from Steelback. But it's a big question mark. I feel that for now, Vitality are just going to use that as a pressure advantage to just play around Jesiz and punish anything that he may do a few oversteps.
Okay, so punishing Jesiz a few oversteps. Looking at CC, looking at some range. I mean, Cabochard with Stand United, GBM with that ultimate, the right of the arcane. He's going to be able to poke down from such a far distance. Keystone Masteries, no real surprises here.
Deathfire Touch for Xerath mains out there that may be interested in what Keystone Masteries run. Surprising that he actually did not go for the Thunderlords. The reason for that is actually very difficult to proc it on Xerath. Because of how difficult it is to land the 3-hit combo, and typically you actually don't want to be in auto-attack range, so it may be valuable for the lane, but it loses a lot of value later on into the game. Whereas Deathfire Touch you can make a lot of value out of with the amount of harass that you consistently do, because you're going to go for an early Morellonomicon, you're going to want to get a lot of cooldown reduction and mana in your pool, and the amount of poke and siege that you have is unrelenting. I'm sure you remember the days of Xerath Ziggs, QuickShot?
Of course I do. They were my favorite times. And you know, so does Jesiz. He was a Xerath Ziggs player back when he was a mid laner for SK Gaming many, many years ago. Actually went to Worlds basically as a Ziggs one-trick. That was what Jez was very well known for. And we'll find out just how practiced Vitality are with this champion. You know, GBM has competitive experience with it. As far as I can tell, in terms of international play, only the 2nd time this year. It was obviously played in CBLOL, as I mentioned. And unfortunately for us, it's a farm matchup. Now, let's touch a little bit on these top lane tanks. Cabochard and sOAZ obviously want to look to impact team fights. But Fnatic with Ivern, with Malzahar, you know, with Malka, there's just so much CC here.
Fnatic have a fantastic teamfight composition when you look at the amount of sheer utility that they have in the form of the Maokai and the Ivern. I'm a little worried about their damage output simply because Kennen, it takes him a little while to get up there. likely going to be going towards the Blade of the Ruin King into the rapid fire cannon, which means that against the beefy frontline in the form of Shen and Graves, you're going to need a little bit more under your belt before you really start packing that punch. So I'm looking at a 3-item spike for the cannon. But Fnatic have plenty of tools to stall out. They have good wave clear with the Malzahar. You combine that with the amount of poke you have from Misfortune. And the split push potential for Rekkles too. There are a lot of options for Fnatic.
That we've actually seen demonstrated. Rekkles has played a great side lane cannon. And you know, if cannon runs out of AD damage, bring another AD. All right, Rekkles is caught, he's rooted, he's stunned, it's Nukeduck. That drops to 200, exhaust comes out. Jesiz, remember, no flash available. Double up and strut damage aplenty. Steelback and Nukeduck back away. No kill this time round.
Nukeduck using his exhaust a little bit preemptively, but it will allow them to push the lane underneath the turret and they can get themselves a good back timing. This will allow Steelback to get himself the early serrated Dirk, which means that trading in the laning phase will be heavily in his favor. And meanwhile, the rest of the map just continues to farm.
Yeah, I mean, flash teleport here for Caps in the mid lane. The TP Nethergrass plays. They could be game-changing. If Caps can find a target or an opportunity. Because as you mentioned, Vedius, it's going to take time, right? For Rekkles to scale up, for Jesiz to also work towards a Black Cleaver, but eventually there will be damage coming out.
But I think we have to look at this mid lane matchup more, because when we think back to throughout this series, the expectation would be that Caps would come out ahead, right? We haven't seen GBM competitively for a while. The last time he was really making his presence known was in the North American LCS. But then in Game 2, he comes out swinging with the LeBlanc, getting 2 solo kills onto Mr. Baby Faker. And when you look at his damage output, the average Camille damage is 569. In Game 2, Caps only did 205.
Yeah, and you know, you said that GBM was making a name for himself. I think he was actually burying his name a little bit. Really tough year. Really tough year. 4-13 in terms of win-loss. We'll expand on that in a moment because Steelback and Nukeduck, they're in trouble. Oh, the trigger seat misses! Roxa anticipating Nukeduck to step forwards, but not the case.
Good sidestep from Nukeduck too. His awareness that I think that all 3 members are in this bush, and he doesn't face check. So that's good. Great to see.
No, very true. To highlight the props, Roxa a little bit toe-to-toe here, fighting for farm. Only going to get the passive to clear out the Raptor camp.
I think it's also worth talking about the junglers a little bit, because Djoko was a large part of the success of Vitality in Game 2. We saw his Kha'Zix go off just a little bit towards the end, getting those multi-kills. And now with Graves and Ivern, he's definitely playing more of a scaling rather than a snowballing. So his laners are left on their own a little bit more, but at least this time we can see that things are more even across the board. Largely because of burning Jeziz's flash early, having 2 mid laners just being that farm mid lane mage style, and in the top lane you have 2 tanks. So the fact that Djoko is playing more scaling is better for the team.
Caps' passive just gets proc. Nethergrasp is available for Caps. He's going to try to turn this around. It's a 2-on-1. The Void Swarm not going to get the kill. Stands United just enough to save GBM. Broxer now coming to help out. Caps flashes away, dodges the 3rd shot of Right of the Arcane. Arcano pulls for first blood.
Nice smite from GBM to get the first blood onto Caps. He's going to walk away with another first blood kill, and Vitality off to another early game lead.
Very good start, but so much was used. Steelback and Nukeduck, they even wanted to join the party because they were roaming up. I have to expect that Cabo's Stand United was interrupted, maybe? I don't believe he joined that fight, as far as I can tell.
Definitely was. So we can see how the fight initiates. Djoko is able to just walk around from behind. Caps decides to go for the all-in because he knows that Djoko cannot interrupt. The Shen ultimate does get interrupted by the Maokai. It's fortunate that Broxer was there to almost turn it around, but GBM is able to reposition and use his ultimate to force Caps back. Now, very unfortunate for Caps, because if he just kept walking in the same direction, he would have been able to get out of it, but he ended up juking himself, and he ends up giving away first blood.
Yeah, first blood to GBM. He's got himself that Dark Seal, as well as the Aether Wisp. Try to stay a little bit out of range of Caps, in conjunction with that Ghost and the Flash, you know. A lot of range and wave pushing power. Vitality off to a decent start. Nukeduck is going to have some support from Djoko, as Jesiz is locked down. The curtain call is firing. And Steelback's waiting for the remaining shots. Number 3, number 4 hits. That will get the summoner heal. Djoko's coming down. Collateral damage is available. Djoko's going to sidestep. End of the line comes out. Rekkles is pinned. Nukeduck gets the kill. Now Djoko dashes away. Brushmaker's denying some vision as Brox is fighting for his life. It's a double to Nukeduck.
2 kills go on to the support, but it's fine because it's Zyra and Vitality get themselves another great early game lead.
Question to Fnatic, is this what Tilt is made of? They're down 1,500 gold before 10 minutes.
You would expect that with such a seasoned organization, with such seasoned players, that something like Tilt should not be a factor. And to be honest, I can only give praise to Vitality because they are playing this early game beautifully, not only with a good early roam and gank from Djoko, but then transitioning that down into the bottom lane. You can see Djoko already in the bottom half of the map, stealing away the red buff. GBM clears out mid and is already making his rotation to the bottom half of the map. Steelback and Nukeduck are just buying time to allow this dive to happen. They have no Shen support, but they also know Maokai can't join the fray. And because GBM is able to join the fight earlier, there is no way they can lose this fight. Just really good teamwork and coordination. The fact that all 4 members are able to get out alive just demonstrates how much Vitality alone have grown in this single series.
You would not know it was the same team. Looking at the level of coordination. And now, a little bit of kudos here to Fnatic. They have champions that need to scale. They need time to get some items. But Vitality are not giving them that chance. We've looked for 10 minutes at everywhere on the map except top lane. Let's quickly take a look at sOAZ, who's shoving Cabochard under the tower. It's even CS. And sOAZ is very, very slowly chipping away. And this is where we're going to start to see some impact as Maokai scaling in levels, scaling in armor and tankiness, and needs to teleport into team fights to have an impact.
I wouldn't be surprised if soon we actually saw the bottom lane of Fnatic look to rotate top, simply because their bottom lane tower is already likely going to go down soon, especially if we see more runes from GBM and the potential ultimate from Cabochard, which means that the best move for Fnatic would actually just be trading towers, especially given that the Cloud Drake is on the board, meaning that Fnatic would likely lose that too, but they wouldn't lose too much given the value of Cloud Drake.
Not the most effective. Taking a look, there's the roam you're talking about. Vedius, GBM, hanging out with Djoko inside the Fnatic jungle. It's a 3 on potentially 4, as Fnatic are not yet backing away. Teleport is available for sOAZ. Stand United is available for Cabochard, and Vitality don't reckon they want that fight just yet. Instead, they're going to peel away. They're going to play this one safe.
Looks like that they don't want to commit a little bit too hard. They were aware of sOAZ not being on the map. There was the possibility of a flank TP from sOAZ.
Talking about sOAZ, you can actually see on the minimap, Cabochard went in. I don't know if he got that blue buff steal, or at least vision, control ward being placed down. sOAZ gave up 4 isolated deaths in the previous game.
Oof.
So that means he died without any of his teammates within 1,500 range. I don't expect that to be true this time around because he's playing a tank that is a team fighter. And previously he was playing like a split pushing G.
I mean, it's still possible if he goes into full split push mode, but it's definitely harder.
Yes. And in theory, less likely, right?
Yes, incredibly so. If he is dying by himself, it'll take so long to kill him that you would assume that another objective is gained somewhere else on him.
Oh, Rekkles might get soloed out here by Nukeduck. Forced to flash. That double kill on the support, as well as a complete unload of abilities, as Rekkles is...
For Nukeduck right now, it's basically back to mid lane, except he puts wards on the map. He just puts a couple more than he already did. So, just another day in the office for Nukeduck. He has someone else in his lane taking his farm, which I understand may very well be a little bit annoying, but for the time being, Nukeduck is having a very good early game. And I feel like this is actually his first best early game that he's had throughout the series.
Yeah, definitely improving as the series went on. Djoko as well, a big part of that. First item spike for GBM. Got himself the Luden's Echo, so increase some of the upfront burst against what is still very squishy champions. Broxer, no redemption just yet. Slowly working towards it. Got those Lucy boots for now, and sOAZ just being chunked down. Going to use that passive to tank up as much as he can.
So, this is something that you'll see often between 2 tanks of the top lane, where they will regularly battle to the death in order for superiority over the lane. But for the time being, Cabo has the advantage because he's already completed his Spirit's Visage. which means that given that sOAZ is purely magic damage, it becomes very difficult for him to actually win out on those exchanges.
Yeah, of course, first items completed for most of Vitality. If you look at your minimap, Spirit's Visage, Luden's Echo, Ghostblade, Eye of the Watcher, and most of the carries on Fnatic and even the tank up top still looking to upgrade.
To give some context on this Luden's Echo, something that we don't often see on a lot of mid laners, it's actually very useful, not only for poke damage, but also to give your mid laner a bit of added mobility. Because Xerath doesn't actually move around the map very often, it's really good as Jesiz gets caught out.
All right, finish that story in a moment. Root comes down from the Deadly Flourish. Jesiz has a flash available in Rekkles, can body block 3 and 4. No summoner spells needed.
Jesiz wasn't making his life easy though, because he kept running backwards and Rekkles was like, stand still! But still, they're able to force back the bottom lane of Fnatic. So Vitality can now look to siege onto this tower. I am surprised that Fnatic have not tried to make the map movement top, to go for a trade of towers. This tower was inevitably going to fall, especially with the priority that GBM has in the mid, as sOAZ now taking a lot of damage.
He really is. Cabo connects with the taunt, and that means sOAZ is forced back. sOAZ was sitting on a fair amount of gold, going to be enough to complete that Spirit Visage, maybe pick up another cheap tier 1 item. There we go, cloth armor. And Rekkles and Jesiz, they'd actually roamed middle before they were pushed away. GBM came to clear the wave. It's going to be close. Still no Blade of the Ruined King here for Rekkles. Really feels like he's behind the tempos. We crossing 15 minutes. It's, you know, a 2,500 gold lead for Vitality. And just a very good early game for what is a struggling team in Group B. One
of the criticisms we had, though, for Vitality of this series was how they use their gold lead. And when we look across the map, yes, there is a lot of vision around the bottom half of Fnatic's jungle. Taking this dragon should be relatively easy for them, but where do they go to next? I'd like to see them take the dragon, make a map movement top, and force another 2 versus 2 between Steelback, Nukeduck, Rekkles, Jesiz, where they can then start getting chip damage down onto this tier 1 in the top lane. Send Cabo down to the bottom and start making the map movements that we saw from the very clean Fnatic game in the first match of the series.
And that's one of those things we'll have to talk to the teams about later, you know, especially Vitality. Who's making the shot calls now? We know Hachani was a leader, was praised for his calls, despite his positional errors that popped up, and maybe somebody else is not picking up that slack just yet. Vitality still committing to this win lane, then transition to win game strategy. And Fnatic seem content for now to try to farm up, because they're not falling behind in CS, right? Yes, they are behind in gold. And as Jesiz and Brox are gonna come up to try tower dive, Cabo?
He doesn't care at all.
Yeah.
He has full vision on where Caps is. He has full vision on where Rekkles is. Cabo knows that he's not going to get dived on, but he could very well lose the tower because he doesn't have the wave clear. So Vitality responding in kind by putting pressure on the tier 2 in the bottom.
All right, so tower will be secured here by Fnatic. Teleport from sOAZ. We're going to follow that one to complete in a moment as he jumped down bottom. We've got a little bit of a tower race on. sOAZ is going to help clear out the wave. The rest of Fnatic, Jesiz and Brox are going to back away from top, and Vitality should just wait for this next wave.
Keep your eye on the minimap because GBM is always pushing in the wave and getting path priority. So he's moving into the enemy jungle to force Caps to take the long way round, because he knows that if they were to engage in a 1 versus 1, Vitality would be the quicker to react. Unfortunately for Vitality, they don't actually commit to the play. If GBM had rotated down bottom, I wouldn't be surprised if they could take that tier 2, but a quick response from Fnatic with the teleport from sOAZ has enabled them to just get themselves that 1 tower on the top and not lose anything overall.
Yeah, so not too bad from Fnatic. Still trailing in gold. The damage to champions, you can see Cabochard obviously with an assist on the board, and the fact that he's been winning that matchup against sOAZ for a little while. Vedius, what is your professional opinion on a Magi Soul Stealer on a champion like Xerath? I mean, technically you should never be in range, right, to be killed.
I think it's reasonable on the champion that he's playing on. If he was still on the LeBlanc in game 1, or game 2, sorry, I'd have a few more question marks. But given that he is playing the Xerath, given that you usually want to be at maximum range, just dealing poke damage and siege damage, it is an acceptable purchase. assuming he can get enough stacks to make it worth it.
I mean, Vedius, looking at Caps right now, he's behind in CS, right? He has teleports. He's down like 1,200 gold, and he's currently sitting on 2,400 gold. This mid lane Malzahar, not to the level of farming or mechanical expertise that we're used to seeing. So not only does Vitality have a gold lead, and Caps is behind, but he hasn't spent the gold that he's earned, so his combat effectiveness is even lower.
Problem is, he doesn't get an opportunity to do so, because if he backs, that gives GBM so much freedom to move around the map. And with a Shen, that is a very dangerous possibility for Fnatic, given the strength of GBM's ability to siege. Look at the positioning of sOAZ on your minimap. He is hanging around the Raptors. He wanted to go for a flanking opportunity onto GBM, but given where the position of Djoko is, they don't know where the bottom lane is of Vitality. Fnatic have to disengage and they return to farm. My biggest issue right now for Vitality is they are sticking to standard lanes. They need to move more around the map. Send your bottom lane up top. Put some pressure on that tower, because you're not going to gain anything just continuing to farm.
Yeah, in actual fact, Fnatic are clawing back this advantage, you know? 2,000 gold to 10 minutes is way more sizable. Blade of the Ruined King has been picked up by Rekkles. One day, Caps will be allowed to spend that gold. Getting close to 3,000 unspent, and Jesiz is also going to back away from the mid lane.
You should be able to clear this and go back.
Okay, should be able to. Blue buff going to be donated here to GBM. And Djoko, a very good performance. All right, finally, Caps recalls from lane, and sOAZ continues to put pressure up top. It's 1 tower to 1. It's Vitality not necessarily playing super proactive on the map, but they've got advantages. They've got champions that are ahead, itemization-wise. And when it comes to team fights now, do you think Fnatic's composition has the edge?
If it was a full 5-on-5 team fight, I would give the slight edge to Fnatic. Let's see if they can make it happen.
All right, if it were a full 5-on-5, GBM's flash will bring sOAZ to the front line. The vengeful Maelstrom buys so much time. It's Broxah that has slain GBM, and Rekkles is on the board, cutting down Nukeduck.
I'm glad I said Fnatic just before that happened, because they were able to cleanly win that fight with 5 members to the 3 left of Vitality. There is still a jungler up for Djoko, but Fnatic want to try and rush this Baron.
Cabochard's teleporting into the pit, and Djoko's got smite available. Sapling Toss will provide vision. Curtain Call will put damage down. This could be a 50-50. Follow Djoko's HP. Baron down to 3,000. Jesiz is already dead. Cabo's forced out of the pit, and Fnatic, they're slowing down. They're stopping. Malefic Visions burning down onto Baron. Djoko's locked. Djoko's killed. Fnatic should have this one secured. It is taken by Broxah, and Fnatic cement their lead.
They certainly do, QuickShot, and what a way to do it. Winning a team fight that isn't quite over yet. Now it's over. Fnatic walk away with the kills, GBM.
2 for 3. He'll take that one.
But Fnatic getting themselves the Baron, making such a decisive decision to go for that objective, will now give them the gold lead and will work perfectly for making up for the early deficit that they were forced into.
Oh, such a fantastic play. So how does this get set up? sOAZ just walks down.
The thing is, Vitality are forced into this choke point where Rekkles can come from one end and Jesiz is free to stand on the back. When all 3 members, or 4 members even, of Vitality are forced into a choke point like that, it just allows Fnatic's immense crowd control and immense stacking damage to just wreak havoc on Vitality's team composition. When they go for the Baron, sOAZ's positioning and play was incredible. Watch how he just positions himself at the edge of the Baron pit to just stir away Djoko. He has full vision, he knows he can get the collapse, and he's even able to get the outplay simply because, remember, the Baron debuff reduces magic resistance for each stack, which means that Maokai gets additional damage, enabling him to get the 1v1.
Really good play from Fnatic, and you know, it all stems from Vitality not playing the map. Steelback was down alone in the bottom lane while the rest of his team was grouped up in the mid. Maybe overextended. Maybe they didn't need to be that far. Maybe I shouldn't be the one making those calls, but Vitality did, and Fnatic collapsed on them. All of a sudden, Fnatic claw back the gold deficit. They've got Baron on 4. Hurricanes picked up for Rekkles, and they're now sieging in a turret bottom. They can peel backwards to the middle lane, and GBM has to be very, very careful here.
The problem for Vitality is their composition is purely built around poking, sieging, not going for these full-on 5v5 engagements. But Fnatic have themselves a composition that make it so easy to force the 5 versus 5 fight. And this is where Vitality is struggling because they don't entirely know how to respond. They don't have good disengage tools other than the Zyra ultimate. And even though Fnatic suffered an early deficit, the fact that they were able to find that big mid-game fight is what's now enabling them to just steam through Vitality.
Oh, I love seeing the team blast going. 4 members of Fnatic hop over the wall, skip towards the turret, and Daisy leads the way to drop the 4th of the game. It's only 25 minutes in, and Fnatic cementing their lead. Steelback again. He was pushing the bottom lane. Djoko's locked down with a nether grasp. GBM's trying to fire from the back line. Stranglethorns knocks up a lot of Fnatic. Rekkles is down before he can do anything. 1, 2, and 3 with Steelback. That's a lot of damage onto Fnatic. They lose Caps and Rekkles.
You have to be careful if you're Fnatic, because while you are certainly ahead of Vitality, they are not weak. They did not have a bad early game. They have still picked up a lot of their core items, and their damage cannot afford to be underestimated. So when Fnatic tried to commit onto that tier 3 turret, they ended up paying for it.
Yeah, paid for it with 2 lives. Good knock-up from Nukeduck Zyra. Here's a replay of that setup.
So you can see how they go for the dive onto Djoko. Yes, he ends up losing his life, but both GBM and Steelback are in prime positions to get all this free damage off on the backline. Cabochard doesn't end up losing his life, and Fnatic just stick around a little bit too long, and they're not respecting the poke damage from Vitality. This is the strength of Vitality's composition, though. The amount of wave clear that they have and the sheer amount of poke is the strength. And if utilized properly, will make it very difficult for Fnatic to force these fights.
I think it's crucial to note Vitality did not lose that turret. Their base still remains turret full. They have a base.
Turret full.
There we go, turret full. That's what I'm gonna go with. And Fnatic need to be a little more careful, because as much as Vitality's got this like poking, somewhat sieging comp, albeit not the greatest at killing towers, for Fnatic it's also very difficult. Short range ADCs in Canon and MF, they have to step so far forward to get those towers down. And that's very, very risky.
Certainly is. But now the game slows down. Notice the difference, though, between Fnatic and Vitality, where when Vitality had a leading game 2, we had a lot more downtime. We had a lot of thinking as to what was going to happen, whereas Fnatic are always moving around the map. You can see top lane going to be pushing towards Vitality's base. Mid lane is being dealt with by Caps. Bottom lane rotation from Fnatic back into mids. They are just making so many more moves to put more pressure on Vitality.
Yeah, watching, Fnatic and Vitality this series, there we go, GBM's caught out, sOAZ came in from behind, flashed over the wall, GBM's down, all the Maelstroms together, crush Vitality, they've lost 3, Djoko forced to flash defensively, and Broxah, the only victim of the Fnatic squad.
Clean team fight force from Fnatic. They lock down GBM, he doesn't have the mobility to avoid that engagement. He does not have the Zhonya's Hourglass, which I feel would have made a big difference at this point in the game. And instead, Fnatic come out with not only a teamfight win, but their first inhibitor at 27 minutes.
Yeah, and Fnatic, they've just showed they can play the map at a higher level. They've punished Vitality when Vitality was slow or maybe over eagerly trying to defend. Flash over the wall from sOAZ, set up that previous fight. And remember, Jesiz, he can run at a mile a minute, strut in those heels. It's hard to hit that with the Jesiz ultimates.
It certainly is. Props to Jesiz for being able to avoid that and come back from what was a very early deficit. But you can see sOAZ, even though the vision is denied, he knows exactly where GBM is. They go for the hard commit combination with Broxah and sOAZ. It doesn't matter if Broxah loses his life, because you have the follow-up utility from Rekkles combined with the utility from Caps, makes it so difficult for Vitality to disengage from an already engaged team fight.
All right, we're approaching 30 minutes into the game, and if you'd asked me at 15 minutes who would win, it felt like Vitality.
It did.
They had a 3,000 gold lead, and Stats team has buzzed me and informed that if Fnatic win this game, it will be the largest comeback of the Spring Splits 2017. And largely in part because Vedius, as we talked about, Vitality, how do they use that gold lead? Not as effectively as potentially they could have.
The thing that we do have to say, though, is that Vitality have looked better. When you look back at their game 2, yes, they have struggled to capitalize on these objectives, but players aren't getting caught out now. They're not making silly mistakes. Game 1 was definitely rough for them. They got punished hard for drafting limitations.
Oh, okay. Right of the arcane. There's 4 shots available. 1, 2, 3. Where's the 4th? Not going to be enough. Jesiz survives with a strut and a flash.
He ran real quick. Not only a combination of his passive, but also all of the utility that he has from the rest of his team was enough for him to get away. GBM not quite on the money with his prediction skills.
I feel it's difficult, though.
Oh, it is. It really is.
It's like trying to snipe Sonic the Hedgehog. GBM gonna get stand united. There's a bit of a zoning Stranglethorns from Nukeduck. Vitality able to send sOAZ packing. Baron is alive. And we have a potential 5-on-5 vision superiority here in favor of Fnatic. Caps hanging around in the back line with an ultimate available.
Note the difference in ultimates available, because Fnatic have 4 ultimates up. sOAZ is about to come offline. Djoko doesn't, Cabo doesn't. Djoko's getting caught.
Yeah, he has a lot of damage. He's going to use the QSS, but will get run down by the swarm. sOAZ is able to teleport in behind Vitality, but it's sOAZ taking the damage. Re-engage with the twisted advance, and it's going to be a decent slow and silence, rather, onto Vitality. It ends up being a 1-for-1. Djoko dies in the back end while sOAZ's teleport cost his life.
Fnatic can still use Daisy to tank up the Baron. Vitality, they have no smite available. And look at the positioning of Steelback. I don't know if Vitality can respond in time.
No, it's going to be another potential big fight. GBM's coming in. No ultimate available to him. Rekkles still has got that slicing maelstrom. Baron is being dropped down. 1900 hit points. Where's the smite? We're looking for the burst. Secured by Fnatic. Now the fight breaks out. Rekkles is running away with the slicing maelstrom. It's just timed out. Broxah targeted and rooted and taunted by Cabochard. Rekkles with red buff, looking to kill Nukeduck. Nuke forced to flash away. Here comes another TP. It's Caps in from behind. Cabo shut down, and GBM, that orb was shocking but not stunning. And Caps' passive saves his life. Run, Rekkles, run! Gets the kill onto Nukeduck.
Nukeduck trying to pretend that he's a plant, but Rekkles walks onto him and thinks, oh, a plant I can use to help catch up to the support. Ends up killing him anyway. Fnatic get themselves the Baron. They're working their way into the base of Vitality, and with 2 members dead, I don't know what they'll be able to get.
No, it feels like the final push here. Djoko caught out by Caps, and it was a slow start for Caps' Malzahar. A lot of questions to answer. For Fnatic and Vitality, Djoko uses a QSS once more, but the army cuts him down. Those Voidlings hurt, man. And GBM's right of the arcane once again, unable to pick up a kill. sOAZ is able to join the rest of the Fnatic squad with the super minions, but Fnatic unable to close out. It looks like the inhibitor about to troll Fnatic and send them away.
Good awareness from Fnatic to move back once the inhibitor was respawning. Caps, oh, really good positioning from him to just be on the flank so that when Vitality come to check the Baron pit, they end up getting collapsed on. Djoko goes down. We mentioned it earlier on, when you lose your smite, it becomes very difficult to try and contest that Baron. And this is where a lot of the ultimates were used earlier on for both GBM and Steelback. Yes, they ended up losing sOAZ, but fortunately you have Daisy to act as that 5th man, so you can then make your way towards the Baron. Now this is where Vitality, a part of me feels that they didn't think that this would happen because Steelback goes back. If he'd been closer to the fight, maybe they could have done more, but it is very difficult to say, especially when you have no real room to steal away that Baron, especially with no vision.
Yeah, especially with no vision. Broxah, another good smite at the end. Obviously no smite to contest, but that's the second time there's been a fairly chaotic Baron fight. And some kudos to Broxah. The teleport to the back end here from Caps threw me for a loop. Forgot that he had that summoner spell. I was like, but sOAZ TP'd, I don't understand. And obviously Rekkles is just going to run down Nukeduck.
If I stand still, does he think that I could just be another part of the jungle? No.
No.
No, he does not. Nevertheless, looking at how Fnatic close out this game. They have the Baron buff. You can send your Maokai up top. His TP's about to come back. You can even send Rekkles up top if you want. He is pretty strong right now, has completed the core of his build, and should be able to force anyone on the side of Vitality out of lane. You can then have the rest of Fnatic group up bottom while the mid lane slowly works their way in. Yeah,
but you got to look back. You know, Fnatic, they came into the series with the substitute, as did Vitality. Questions around the performance. A near flawless game one for Fnatic. But then I think now more questions around the drafting, right? ADC Kennen, Malzahar mid Camille into LeBlanc. I think it's going to spark a lot of debate and a lot of discussion around, is this what Fnatic should be doing?
A part of me feels that Fnatic's draft is very much about, let's deny. Ooh, Broxah.
A lot of damage onto Broxah. He might actually go down from this one. Used everything. Curtain Call tags him as well. GBM gets a kill credit, but it's a supporty jungler for a tank. Caps, dodges and ducks and dives and gets out to the right of Arcane. Arcano pulses so much range and poke. This is what Vitality's comp wanted to do.
They have so much wave clear, they have so much harassment. Nukeduck gets caught.
Yeah, he does. Rekkles is looking for the kill, but he's forced to run away. Takes a lot of damage from GBM. Remember, the inhibitor spawned in the mid lane, so Fnatic, again, over-eager, you know, pushing too far forward.
Also, though, you have to respect the way in which Vitality played that. They have a lot of single target CC that if one person oversteps, they quickly catch them out. Broxah gets caught, he gets nuked down. They do trade it for Cabochard, but the play here from Broxah isn't necessarily the wrong one. He's trying to get vision. He ends up getting caught out. They are able to return it down onto Nukeduck, who's sitting on the, or Cabochard, sorry, who's on the front line. But then the harassment coming out from GBM just forces Fnatic back. And this is a window for Vitality to actually stall, because Fnatic, so far, they've been able to get that fight mid lane. They've been able to draw Vitality out towards the Baron to fight. But now, Fnatic don't have a Baron buff. Fnatic don't have an objective to force Vitality to fight for. So Vitality can sit back, they can farm, and they can just wait. Because if you get a 6-item Xerath, I do not want to be the guy that's playing up against that, because it becomes near impossible to siege and deal with the amount of poke that this guy can throw.
Well, that just increases the value of Baron buff, doesn't it? You know, mitigate some of that magic damage. That can be going down. Fnatic have got themselves a Guardian Angel for sOAZ. Gone over 35 minutes more about Mortius, now completed for Rekkles. Fnatic continuing to sort of scale up into this game, but it's a 6,000 gold difference. Elder will be up in a few minutes' time, but it doesn't feel like Elder's the objective Fnatic need. It really feels like that Baron is what will help them break open that base once more.
All Fnatic really need is an objective to force Vitality to come to, right? So even if Fnatic don't get the Elder Dragon, as long as Vitality come out of their base and are in a position where sOAZ can maybe get a TP flank, Caps can get a flank, where they can actually just get the collapse down onto Vitality, that is the situation that Fnatic want, because they don't want to sit around and allow both Caps and GBM and Steelback to get all this poke down.
I mean, look at the vision, right? Fnatic have got a lot of wards on the minimap, but Caps was stood right on top of ward inside that Grom pit, just walked past another, so Vitality fully aware of Caps' ability to nether grasp somebody down. Baron is up in 40 seconds and Fnatic peeling away. Gonna try set up around that particular objective, and Vitality can afford no mistakes. I'm looking at blue trinkets. One of them is available for GBM, and he's just dropped that down. And we need to keep an eye. Where is the vision? Vitality can't afford to face check. If you toggle the vision, observers can take a look at that. You'll see how little information Vitality have to work with, and they're going to be so careful around these objectives.
But also look at where Rekkles is moving. He's now in the top lane. Remember that he's now in a position where he could actually 1v1 anyone, especially someone like Cabochard, who has focused more on magic resistance than AD. They have been pushed up mid. They know Vitality have no vision. They're just going to rush this down.
Vitality have no idea. They are too late to the party, backing away. Seeing Vitality pings on Elder Drake. This could cost him the game. Fnatic Where are they going? All right, peeling away from Fnatic. They're making their way up to top lane.
Now, if Vitality can get the Elder Dragon, this is actually very good for them. Remember, they have a lot of poke, they have a lot of wave clear. That is damage that Fnatic cannot afford to ignore.
Yeah, but at what cost? Their base is at risk of being lost here. Recalls coming up from Vitality. The rest of Fnatic gonna knock on the inhibitor turret in the top lane. Cabo, the only man up top for now. Banshee's Veil is popped. Curtain Call is gonna tag onto Broxah. Where is GBM? I'm looking for the right of the Arcane. He's tagged 3 for 3. The fourth shot is flashed away from, but the tower has gone down. sOAZ is engaged. He teleported in, stunned up by the shocking orb. The inhibitor is the target. Vitality are running away. They can't find the fight because they need to poke. They need to be at distance. They don't want to 5v5.
They're terrified of the all-in engage from sOAZ, and he is making his presence known. Look at his positioning right now, just waiting for Steelback or GBM to be in that position to get locked down.
Cabo's got a flash available to him. Where is the taunt? Can he find a target? Unfortunately, GBM, Steelback, Djoko, they've used their ultimates. They blew their load too early, and there's no damage to win any fights.
Vitality, though, right now are doing everything they can to defend their base.
Yeah, Bullet Storm comes down. Bullet Time, rather. And 2 inhibitors fall. Fnatic just... they're just running circles around Vitality.
The biggest problem for Vitality was that the Elder Dragon hadn't even spawned yet. If they could have just rushed it down, went back to base, that might have just been enough damage to trade back against this Baron-empowered Fnatic lineup. They couldn't get the objective, they couldn't stop the siege, and now Fnatic are in prime position to get the Elder for themselves.
Yeah, look at the minimap. Vitality, they can't contest. They can't win a team fight. This is composition that there was no room for error in terms of playing the map when you need to siege, when you need to poke. You need to be that really tall guy in a boxing match that holds the short guy's forehead.
Yeah.
And never lets him punch you, you know? Yeah,
I think that's a great example. Something that hits the home a little bit too personally. But moving forward, no, I'm kidding. I'm a pretty tall guy.
You are. And unfortunately for Vitality, they couldn't keep Fnatic at arm's reach.
But I think you make a right point in the sense that Vitality, they had a good early lead. They got a little bit too overconfident, and Fnatic fought back. And now they're looking to fight for this final tier 3 turret.
All right, sOAZ puts the ultimate down just to reduce some damage. Cabochard is melted under the focused fire of Fnatic. Rekkles and the rest of Fnatic chase all the way through. Nukeduck is rooted and locked down. Steelback on the fountain at risk of dying as well. Rekkles really going ham. Gets the triple kill, looking for the quadra. Gets it on the end. The Nexus is being destroyed. And Fnatic send their regards from Group A, defeating Vitality 2-1.
It was looking a little shaky for Fnatic.
A little.
Game 2, they dropped pretty hard, and then in Game 3, the early game was looking very rough, but they drafted a composition which was effectively just group and fight, and they made it work.
Vedius, that was very shaky. Gigantic smiles on the faces of Caps and Broxah. It was a hard-fought series, and while there was praise for both teams, there was also criticism for the performances. Fnatic shaking hands of Vitality, and look, there's some hope here for Vitality.
There certainly is. I am very impressed with how quickly they improved throughout the series. We have to respect the fact that as a team, they haven't had much time to practice with this new lineup. But from what we have seen so far, things definitely look pretty promising.
It is, and like, you know, you have to step back. I threw in the Group A and Group B stuff at the end of that game. Fnatic ranked 3rd in Group B. They came Group A. They came into the series 2 wins, 2 losses. It was a 4th-placed Vitality at 1 and 3, and this was a competitive series from 2 teams who are still struggling in the spring split. Numbers 1 and 2 in both respective groups, this being G2, Misfits, UOL, H2K, really are looking like the 4 of them are in a class of their own right now.
They certainly are. And we have to wonder how much of that comes down to the team's environment, their scrim schedules, their practice, the ways in which they're investing into preparing for the LCS, because so far the top 4 teams seem to have it figured out, right? They seem to know exactly what they're doing coming into each week, how they want to play these games, and it's just question marks a lot of the time for teams like Fnatic. We had big question marks in Game 2 in particular with what are they drafting? Why are they going for something like this? And they
what are they doing in game? Why they're overextending so much against the Kha'Zix?
And it's one thing to say time will fix issues, right? But a part of me also feels that maybe teams get a little bit too reliant on time. And unless you put the effort into the time that you are given, you don't necessarily get results.
I think that's very important to note because this is now week 4, right? There are only 10 weeks of regular play. There are only 13 best of 3s. And Vitality are currently sat at 1 win, 4 losses. You know, they are running out of games to claw back possibilities. And when you're sitting in that 4th space spot, yes, you are safe. You know, 5th in the group goes to promotion tournament, 1, 2, and 3 go to playoffs. Those are the sweet spots that you have to be aiming for.
And these are the games that are actually even more important than the regular group games too, because this is the only time that you'll play your team, these teams once. So if you can get the points here, then you definitely should.
You have to be getting those wins, and that is something that Fnatic did. Take a close look at how they did it. Let's talk to their mid laner on stage with Pyra.